Bonjour et bienvenue. Welcome to this video from Coffee Break French, in which we're going to be telling you about our new advanced course for French learners called La Vérité éclate toujours. Moi, c'est Marc. My name's Mark. I'm the founder of Coffee Break Languages and one of the hosts of Coffee Break French, along with other hosts. And today we're here to tell you a little about the new course, La Vérité éclate toujours, for advanced learners. And I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Pierre Benoit. Bonjour, Pierre Benoit.
Bonjour Marc, comment vas-tu aujourd'hui?
Ça va très bien, très content que nous lancions ce nouveau produit.
Oui, que nous soyons là pour en parler, c'est super.
Tout à fait, tout à fait. So tell us a little about La Vérité éclate toujours, s'il te plaît.
Oui, bien sûr, Marc. La vérité éclate toujours is this new advanced course that our advanced learners have been waiting for, so that they can take their language skills a step further to a higher level.
To a higher level indeed, because it is a higher level. We're talking about C1 level of the Common European Framework of Reference. So we're talking about a really advanced level of language. Now, it's built around basically a novel that spans 40 chapters, and over these 40 chapters, you'll learn about a story, but you'll also learn a huge amount of language. Pierre, tell us a little bit the structure of the course.
Yeah, as you said, Mark, it's like a novel. It's a crime novel. It's got intrigue, it's got suspense, and it's divided into 40 episodes, which could go into two categories. Some episodes are in a narrative forms, and other episodes are in the dialogue form.
Okay, so the narrative form episodes, these are just like basically you choose a book off the shelf, a French novel, and you can get into that text, but it's a complex text. It's full of description, it's full of complex language, and this language allows you to develop your confidence in the language as you look up words and understand what's going on. But we've also got a few episodes, a few chapters, which are a little bit different. They use a kind of dialogue form. So, Pierre Benoit, what does that involve?
Well, the dialogue form allows you to hear different characters using different voices, different accents, a different style of register, because obviously when it's a dialogue, the language maybe is not as tricky as what you would find in the narrative episodes.
Tout à fait, tout à fait.
But Mark, La Vérité éclate toujours is not just a story, is it?
Absolutely not. No, we've got a course, a full course in the Coffee Break Academy, which allows you to get the most out of these resources. There are notes, lesson notes, there are annotated texts where you'll be able to read the text, but also use our notes to understand everything with cultural references, with grammatical explanations and so on. There are vocabulary lists for each chapter. There is a video version where you can see the words on the screen as you read. And we also have our language study audio episodes, and that's something that listeners to Coffee Break French Season 4 may be familiar with. Pierre Benoit, can you explain a little more about our language study episodes?
Yeah, the language study episode, just like in previous with previous courses, the two of us look at each sentence through each paragraph. We look at the content, the expressions, the idiomatic expressions, this rich vocabulary, the tenses. Also the tenses, because we're discovering a brand new tense.
Indeed, brand new for us, for Coffee Break French. It's certainly been around in France for a long, long time, or in French language for a long, long time. Indeed, it's called the past historic. And the past historic is the natural narrative tense that you would find in a book, whether it's a children's book or a book, a complex philosophical work by Rousseau or whatever. And we'll be using this past historic and learning all about the past historic throughout the course. Now, another important element of La Vérité éclate toujours is the atelier linguistique, the linguistic workshop, if you like. And for this new element, we have a new member of the team, and we're delighted to introduce Eva. Bonjour Eva, comment vas-tu?
Bonjour. Ouais, ça va très bien, merci. Et toi, ça va?
Ça va très bien, très bien. Okay, tell us about your role in this project.
Well, my role in this project is basically to bring a learner's perspective to the whole thing. I'm also an advanced learner of French, so I'm roughly at the same level as all of you who will be following the course. And so that means that as I'm reading through La Vérité éclate toujours, I have so many questions about all the really interesting and complex language we're coming across. And the chances are the questions that I have are similar to the kinds of questions that you'll have when you're reading them too. So I'm here to kind of help us explain them.
Tout à fait. And we do that through a variety of ways, through the language study episodes also. But during the Atelier Linguistique, we take this on a stage further. Can you explain a little more about that?
Yeah, so that's the whole point with the Atelier Linguistique episodes. It is taking on what we're learning to taking it to the next step. Basically, for each episode, I've chosen a number of language points from each chapter. And then Mark and I will go through these and basically discuss different contexts that the same phrases and structures can be used in, so that we can start to apply what we're learning into more everyday contexts.
And reuse these wonderful phrases and expressions in our own spoken French and written French over the course of the weeks in between the chapters, basically.
Mark, do you have some samples of the premium course that we could show?
I do indeed. Let's take a look at that now.
To begin with, the audio podcast will introduce each chapter of our story. You'll join me and Pierre Benoit, our native speaker and teacher, as we present each chapter of the book and talk about the story. Let's have a listen.
So let us get started with episode 1. This is our first chapter of our story. Ok, c'est à toi de jouer.
Ah bah oui, très bien, pas de pression, c'est parti.
Chapitre 1.
J'avais oublié ce que c'était de voyager en TGV, se dit James. Seulement 2 heures pour aller à Paris. Le voyage lui parut extrêmement court, et pour cause.
So, as you can hear, the audio is presented in a combination of French and English, and Pierre Benoit will read each chapter of the story. In the dialogue chapters, you'll hear the full dialogue, presented by our various speakers. The next element is the chapter text. So imagine picking a French novel off the shelf and starting to read it with no assistance, with no notes and no explanations. And this is exactly what you can do with the chapter text. Obviously, by this stage, you'll have heard the chapter read by Pierre Benoit in our podcast, and you can try to work your way through the chapter with no explanations and no notes. It will be a challenging read. Obviously, the level is a very high level. But to help you with this, we also provide the annotated text. And in the annotated text, as you can see, all of the tricky elements of the text are explained. So we give explanations of the grammar, tricky vocabulary, and also cultural notes to help you get the most out of the text. So having tried to read through it with the main text, use the annotated text to get a little deeper into the language. Now, our course also includes what we call language study episodes. And in these, I'm joined again by Pierre Benoit, and we discuss the entire text of the chapter. So we go through each sentence of the chapter and talk about the grammar used, talk about additional phrases, talk about the idiomatic expressions and any interesting vocabulary in the chapter. And because this is quite a long text, we've broken this down into manageable chunks of around 15 minutes. So for each episode, for each chapter of the book, you'll have multiple language study audio pieces to work through. Let's have a listen to some of these now.
And I notice ce qui prouve bien que nos rêves and so on. And I think learners, we're used to thinking about subjunctives and we see bien and que there and you're thinking, oh, right, that next verb is going to be a subjunctive. But here it's not, because the bien goes with prouver.
Yeah, it's an adverb that goes with prouver. It's not bien que.
Mm-hmm.
It's bien and then the que.
Of course. So Max was very present in his dreams, which the fact that Mac was very present in his dreams, which really proves that our dreams are, and you said closely, narrowly, étroit is the verb for is the word for narrow, but étroitement as an adverb, then we're looking at closely. Okay, so closely linked to reality, and then puisque is a nice word. It means since. And puisqu'il accaparait ses pensées, he was taking up all his thoughts ces derniers jours, these past few days.
So you can hear there that we go through every line of the text and explain it and give you further examples, helping you understand exactly what everything means. Okay, so those are the main elements that you'll start working with for each chapter. In addition, we provide some materials to help you review the chapter. So we provide the chapter audio, so this is like an audiobook of the story, and this will help you revisit the text, review the text, having already gone through it in detail with the annotated notes and the language study. We also provide this as a video version, so we've got the chapter video, where you will be able to watch the video, so read along with the text of the chapter as you listen to it.
Toutes ces questions lui trottaient dans la tête. Mais pourquoi lui? Pourquoi maintenant? Pourquoi aller à Paris alors qu'un coup de fil aurait pu suffire, comme par le passé? Que s'était-il passé? Qu'est-ce qui semblait le tracasser tant que ça? Que lui était-il donc arrivé pour qu'il soit si inquiet? Ils s'étaient connus sur les bancs de la fac, en première année de journalisme à Paris, il y a un peu plus de 30 ans. Ils avaient tout de suite sympathisé et étaient devenus inséparables, toujours dans les bons coups, tout comme les foireux d'ailleurs. Une complicité qui fit d'eux les meilleurs amis du monde.
So as you can see here, the text moves and you'll be able to read the text along with the audio. We also provide a vocabulary list to help you test your understanding, and you can cover up one half of this with the French and see if you can work out the English and vice versa. We provide this both in alphabetical order and in the order of appearance in the text. So that's the review elements. But taking this further, we also publish an additional piece of audio and text, and that is our Atelier Linguistique. And the Atelier Linguistique is published on the in-between weeks. So if the episode comes out, the chapter comes out on the first week, then the next chapter will come out on the third week and the fifth week and the seventh week and so on. So in weeks 2, 4, 6 and so on, we're publishing an Atelier Linguistique. And in this, you'll join me as the teacher and our advanced learner, Eva, who is working through the text and has many questions about the text and wants to learn how to use the words and phrases that we've learned in the text and use them in new contexts. Let's have a quick listen to this.
Let's look at another example. This is a little bit more complex grammatically. Je m'étais tellement tracassé alors qu'en réalité, l'examen était facile. Je répète, je m'étais tellement tracassé alors qu'en réalité, l'examen était facile.
Okay, so I think I recognize a pluperfect in here.
Tout
Am I
à fait,
right?
bravo!
So this would be, I had worried so much when in reality the exam was easy.
Exactly. So we have se tracasser when we're using a compound tense. Because it's a reflexive verb, we need to use être, and therefore we're using the imperfect tense of the auxiliary verb être. Je m'étais tellement tracassé. I was so worried, or I had worried so much, alors que, whereas, or while, or when, en réalité, l'examen était facile. When in reality, the exam was easy.
Okay, great.
And of course, in addition to the audio content, we also provide notes to accompany the Atelier Linguistique, where we provide all of the examples in a written form.
Whoa, there's so much in terms of content, Mark. It's a very rich course.
Tout à fait, exactly. And we'll guide you through all of this content, and we'll help you build your knowledge and develop your confidence in using this high level of language gradually. In fact, I would say there are sort of 4 modes of learning through the course. Let's take a look at those 4 modes as we can apply them to La Vérité.
If we organise this in 4 modes of mastering the content included in this course, first of all, the learning, where we listen to the podcast and read the chapter text. And then the studying part, so we're getting into that in more detail. We're studying the annotated text and listening to the language study audio. It then moves on to a review stage, where we can review the audio on the go with the audio text. We can use the video as a final review, and then also test ourselves with the vocabulary list. And finally, to use the language that we've learned by listening to the Atelier Linguistique and putting that language into practice with some translations, and learning to use that new language using the text provided.
We want our listeners to get hooked by La Vérité, so that all depends on the story. Pierre-Benoit, tell us a little more about the story.
Yeah, the whole story, Mark, evolves around our main character, James Morrow. James Morrow is Scottish, but he lives in France, in Nantes, on the west coast of France. And he's a journalist. He's a reporter with loads of experience and works for a newspaper based in London. The first episode starts with his best friend Max Forêt calling him or having called him because there's something not right, there's something wrong, and James decides to go up to Paris to help his friend.
Indeed. And over the course of the 40 chapters, we see James taking on an international journey, trying to investigate and find out what has happened to Max.
Yes, because it's a story with global repercussions now.
Yeah, and it's just such an exciting adventure story because James is just desperate to find out what's happened to his friend.
And as we follow that story, we find out more, but we also acquire this huge range of vocabulary, idiomatic expressions, and this complex grammar that we are following in each of the chapters. And all of that, of course, is explained in all the support materials.
Yes, and as Eva said, James wants to find out what happened to his friend. He's a journalist, and so what matters to him is that quest for finding the truth, because the truth will out, as we say in La Vérité éclate toujours.
La vérité éclate toujours. So if you'd like to find out more about La Vérité éclate toujours, head over to the Coffee Break Academy, and that's at coffeebreakacademy.com, and the link will be below. You'll be able to see that, and there you'll find out more and all you need to know about this new course. Thank you for watching. We hope that you've enjoyed finding out a little more about this new resource that we've put together, and above all, we hope that you enjoy the story. Merci Eva, merci Pierre-Benoit.
Merci, au revoir.
Au revoir.
And of course, if you've enjoyed this, then don't forget to like and subscribe to find out more about what we do here at Coffee Break Languages. Merci beaucoup et à très bientôt!